Well, welcome back. I'm so excited about kicking off our interviews from the back seat, and especially about our interviews series on racism. Our purpose is to encourage each other to hopefully get a different perspective. But what I'm most excited about is to hear from our employees. I like to get to know our employees and treat them as family, so it's really special for me to get to know their thoughts and their opinions, especially on the aspect of racism and what is going on in our country. So with further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Leon Howard. He's one of our top chauffeurs and very special member of our team. So really excited to speak with you today and get to know a little bit more about you. So without further ado on that, we'll go right into the questions.
Okay.
First question, when you see the videos of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, and the many others circling the internet, what are the things that go through your head?
It's kind of like a gut check, a mixture of fear and anger and, sadness that we're losing more people to the same issues that we've been having for so long. So I would say probably sadness and anger the most.
Wow. Do you have anger? Do you feel scared at all, or is it just more anger?
Yeah, it's like I said,
else,
fear. When I look at those people, those faces, and put names to them, and what's in my head is that could that happen to me if I interact with a cop and things go left? They may not be having a good day. Anything can happen. So that's what goes through my head. So that's where the fear aspect of it comes in. But the anger is just looking at a human being being taken away over something that could be de-escalated, something that could be easily squashed. So that's where the anger comes in. Not so much at the actual person, but just knowing that this is still going on in 2020.
Right. If you were stopped by a police officer because of a taillight, we all get scared that we might get a ticket. Mm-hmm. But what else goes through your head? What are the things that you think about when you're sitting there waiting for the cop to come up?
I could only go off experience. So most of the time I kind of just try to stay as calm as possible. Try not to make any sudden movements. Try to make eye contact with the officer. Right. But you still have that fear of not knowing what's gonna happen. All you see is the blue lights, and it's terrifying. But luckily, I've never had any bad experiences with being pulled over. I've been pulled over for minor infractions, and everything went smooth. But you just never know.
If you were in an unfamiliar area and surrounded by a Caucasian demographic, white demographic, what are some of the things that go through your head?
Just to be honest, there's a lot of fear of not knowing who is who's an ally, who's racist, who may have never seen a black guy with dreads before. So those little things come into my head, not knowing if somebody may feel threatened by my presence. And I think fear, the fear of not knowing, I think is what plays the most in my head, being around a lot of white folks. Mm-hmm. You never know how other people will perceive you.
Right, that's huge.
Yeah.
What would change if it was AfricanAmerican demographic, black demographic, and why?
I think being around African Americans, you tend to be more comfortable, I guess, because it's more of like a home feeling. You're more comfortable around your people. It's sad that it's like that, but when you look at the outside, they may talk and communicate with all of these other races, but they tend to segregate and go where they're more comfortable. So I think that's what it is. I don't think it's so much that I'm more comfortable with African Americans as opposed to Caucasian people, but the society and how it's shaped, and the narratives that are driven in today's society, I think makes it more difficult to deal with people outside of your race. Or even with a group of black teenagers may have a fear of them and not knowing what it is, what their motives is, because of the stigma, that society placed on those kids. Not me personally, but I can understand how people have these fears and have these ideas about other people without even getting to know them.
Yeah.
and I think it's a society thing. Racism, really,
Right. Yeah.
but it's driven by society rather.
Interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things I like about you is you're fearless.
Yeah.
So, I love it. So there's a lot of promotion about Black Lives Matter.
Hmm.
Why such a focus on Black Lives Matter and not a focus on All Lives Matter? There are so many other demographics that are challenged by racism. Why such a focus on Black Lives Matter?
I believe the reason why is because of how Black life has been treated in America, since the beginning of time. The anti-Black sentiment that is prevalent here in America. I think that's the reason for the statement. I don't think that when people say Black Lives Matter that they're saying other lives don't matter or Black Lives Matter more. I think what they're trying to convey is we have value in us being killed and murdered in the street like dogs, that these cops that are doing it should be held accountable. So if you have an understanding that it's not about pinning one group against the other, it's just to bring awareness to this one issue, the issue that we have in our community. I think that's the reason why the focus on Black lives is because of the way society is shaped today in 2020 still.
Interesting. So we hear a lot of talk about systemic racism. Basically that certain demographics do not have the same opportunities as others because of poor school funding, challenges from racism in our parents' and grandparents' eras, and dissimilar opportunities in our communities.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see a struggle with systemic racism in your own life? And what are those struggles?
I struggle with it with buying a home, for example. Me and my wife, we have a beautiful family we're trying to raise, but there's been practices in the banking system and the financial sector of the world that discriminates. I've dealt with that firsthand, trying to get a home loan and not qualifying for it because of issues that didn't even have anything to do with me. The thing that I deal with that's the worst, I feel, is having to talk to my kids about it. That's the struggle, is them not understanding that they can't just be who they are, and be accepted, that they have to be a certain way, and they see it as me trying to change them or them not being worthy enough to be in this society, and that's not what it is that I'm trying to convey to them. So that's the struggle that I have with is just dealing with my kids, teaching them, because I have boys, so.
Right. Yeah.
Two of them are like grown men right now, so. So yeah.
Wow. Interesting. What thoughts do you have that will help us overcome systemic racism so there are equal opportunities in the country?
Well, I think justice, the word that comes to mind, I was a criminal justice major in school, and so you hear that word, like say me and you were to do the same crime, we'd think that we would be sentenced in the same manner, but there's actual data that shows that you may get a easier break than me. Mm-hmm. And I think that in order for us to move forward as a country, it has to be justice, equal justice for everybody. And I think that would weed out everything. If you have justice, then it's that's the end all be all, so and then dismantling systematic institutions that help promote racism in our country, like the prison system, unfair policing, discrimination off of people's skin color. I think if we dismantle all of that, we could get to a better place in our society. Yeah.
Now you had mentioned, we talked about this before, what are one of the best ways to be able to do this? You're big into politics, and you like to keep up with it.
Yeah.
You voiced one of the best ways to be able to do this and create the justice that we need. What was that?
Well, I was talking specifically about a candidate that I supported. He aligned more with my values, and I think that having him in office, the things that he was saying, the policies that he was saying he wanted to implement, would get us to a more just, society. He literally was the only politician that speak about it and have a policy-based system to back up the words that he's saying. On a local level, dealing with your city council, your senator, you know, you want to vote these people that align with your values, and you could affect change in that way as well. It's a slower process, but
right, but not just, you know, on the country side of it, but more even on the local level.
Yeah,
you had
definitely,
mentioned.
definitely.
What thoughts do you have that will help us overcome racism in our country as a whole and get us to a point where we can experience equal value and equal respect among all demographics?
Honestly, I believe something like this, like a forum like this, you know, when you get to know other people and their values, like, I don't expect you, you know, you're a white guy,
Yeah.
I'm a black guy, I don't expect you to view the world like me, but I just don't want you to deny it. I don't want you to deny my view of the world.
Sure.
I want you to see what I see and try to understand it as best as you can. I can empathize with you on how you can't really fathom, you know, being so scared to the point where you have an anxiety attack because you see blue lights, and you know, I can understand why you may view the world the way that you do. So, you know, I think if we, you know, have a real conversation about what it is that's going on, how people feel, you know, people's fears, you know, people's wants, I think that we could at least move the needle with that. You know, it's nothing, never going to just be a broad brush and then everything is just going to go into place. I think we have to really tackle this, and it has to be the people.
Right. That's awesome, and that's the purpose of this. That's why we're putting this together. Is we want to get your perspective, and we want to get, you know, the personal perspective, not just a you know, overall perspective from the demographic, but your personal perspective. What's going on in your life?
Yeah.
So I think this is really good. So thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for being vulnerable, and yeah, I appreciate it so much, and you know, thank you for the chance to get to know you better. So. So with that said, until next time, be encouraged, make a difference, and thank you.